Good evening, everyone. My name is Andy Wojcik, and I'm the Director of Development at Clearbrook. And I just wanted to thank you for joining us tonight for this conversation on COVID, so you can get an update from our leadership team and hear what we've been doing and how we've been caring for your loved ones. A little bit about this webinar. If you have questions, type them into the chat and someone will get back to you. It's not going to be interactive where you'll be able to ask Tony questions directly. If it's something that pertains to what we're talking about, we'll make sure that they're able to talk about it. But if not, our staff people will get back to you to answer your questions. So next, I would like to introduce Tony DiVittorio, the President and CEO of Clearbrook.
All right, thanks, Andy. And first of all, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's tuned in. I know your time is very valuable, and so we'll respect that. Before we get going, just what we're not doing tonight. So, like Andy said, that we're not going to do individual about your loved ones or in general operations. Really, what we want to do is kind of look back to see where we've been with COVID and currently where we're at, and then looking forward and the role that you play. And actually, we'll kind of point out to you how we need your help, especially these days. So back, it seems like a lifetime ago right now, but back in March, before St. Patrick's Day, COVID was in the news, but not really affecting life yet. And I, quite honestly, wasn't taking it all that seriously. And I have to hand it to our executive team. In meetings with them, they were pointing out how this could be serious and how we might want to look at things. And in a lot of conversations, they convinced me that this was going to be a significant challenge. And so even before the governor started doing his things, we started doing our things. We weren't waiting. So if you remember, we placed the residential homes in isolation, and then we closed the day programs before the schools were closed. And those are hard challenges. So I would say, first of all, to all the families, I understand where you're coming from when that first started. I have a son who's pretty capable, but still I feel very vulnerable, and he's a freshman in high school, and I always worry about him. So I can only imagine, as the people that you trust us with, your sons and daughters and your brothers and sisters, for us to isolate you from them where you can't be in their lives firsthand anymore creates all kinds of anxiety. And as the newspapers and the radios, everywhere you looked, the stories began about COVID, the anxiety was enormous, and we knew it would be, and we understood that. So the initial responses from a lot of families was a lot of anger, and they vented, and that's understandable. So first of all, there's no problem with that. We understood where it was coming from. It was out of love. And nobody had been here before, and so what we were doing was unusual. So we did appreciate those families who down the road would call back and apologize and say, "Oh, this was serious. This wasn't goofing around, and we're sorry. We appreciate it." So those words are always appreciated by us, but it wasn't necessary. We knew where it was coming from. So when COVID first started and we began to shut down, we were pretty proud of ourselves for, the first, it seemed like a month before we had any experience with it. We were thinking all the things that we were doing was paying off. And then it hit us, and it hit us in a real significant way. If you remember, we got through April almost, and then it entered into the Commons, our 85-bed facility, and it entered into some of the Scylla homes. So before I go any further, just talking to this group, our 16-bed homes, your leadership staff, your DSPs, all did exceptional work, all followed the protocols we developed and designed, took every precaution, did everything they should and everything we thought we knew to do. Some people got sick, but never sick enough to be taken to the hospital, because back when this first hit, you had to really be ill. You had to have a very high fever. You couldn't breathe any longer. You were having respiratory distress before they would even think of taking you to the hospital, let alone walk into the building and take care of you. But I say this because you're still part of the Clearbrook experience. And in a lot of ways, we were just lucky that nobody had a confirmed case. However, we were experiencing it in spades, especially in the Commons, and that was always our biggest fear. In the Commons, we have 85 residents. Many share rooms, share bathrooms. As a group, they tend to be older. Many are over 65. More than half are in wheelchairs. They have a lot of medical conditions. So we knew if COVID got in there, we were going to have a battle, and we did. And we didn't win it all the time. And so as people got sick, staff and individuals, people began to be hospitalized and then put on ventilators. And it was a struggle, and we lost people. We had people die. And so our staff response was incredible. Our DSPs, I've always respected the DSPs, the work they do day in and day out, sometimes thankless, sometimes with a lot of gratitude that people share. But nobody signed up to work in this kind of an environment that we were working in now. Where you were walking into a home, and if it was a home that was confirmed sick, you knew that COVID was there. You knew that people had it. And especially in the Commons, where dozens of people were sick at the same time. And the staff that you were working alongside of yesterday was up at the hospital today. And yet that staff kept coming in. So the DSPs who worked in the homes and in the Commons and in the 16-bed homes, they just kept coming. And if you would have asked me, they far exceeded my expectations. I thought we would hear reasons why they couldn't come to work and excuses. We also had day program staff, and when we closed down the day programs, we took them from what they knew, those sites that they worked at, the people that they worked at, and sometimes the people who they worked with. And we pulled them out of those situations because that's not where they were needed. And we put them into the Scylla homes, into the 16 beds, and into the Commons. That alone is a challenge. But now as people get sick, and as they're getting sick, again, they amazed everybody that they just kept coming. Day in and day out, months at a time. The Commons was unique, though, because of the severity, because of the death, because of the hospitalizations, all at once, it seemed like. When it hit that first weekend, we weren't sure that we would be able to function by Sunday. Staff stepped in. Jessica Smart really showed incredible leadership and knew that what we needed to do was anything we could for the DSPs. And so we made some changes. We did some things. Just so you understand, when a home, any site was identified as a sick site, meaning they had a certain level of fever and had certain level of symptoms, the staff began to get double time. Whether it was their first hour or their 50th or 60th hour, they were getting double time as a way to support them. But when you think about walking into a house full of illness, a building full of illness, staff dropping and individuals dropping, and actually some dying, double time doesn't seem like that much. She quickly realized that many of our staff were working double shifts, working 16 hours a day, and then would have to go home, knowing they were exposing their loved ones, the people they lived with the possibility of getting sick. And along with that, if you're a mom and you're working 16 hours and you get home, you're still a mom. And now you have to work even though you're exhausted and you're scared to be with your family. So Jessica reached out to a local hotel and arranged 4 rooms for the staff. So after their double shifts, they could go and get 8 hours of peace and quiet. And these are people who don't go to hotels all that often, so it was a gift that they could have peace and quiet. We gave them food, meal tickets, so they could order food out, and they could close their eyes and be at peace until it was time to come back for the next 16 hours. And they kept coming. The DSPs were incredible. I know you know your people, and I know you appreciate them, but you really need to know just how far they pushed themselves to do the right things. They were asked once, not twice or 3 times. They were asked the first time, and they continued to deliver day after day, week after week, and through the months. The managers, the leadership staff, the Qs, the people who kind of coordinate and organize, it was intentional. We didn't want everybody in the homes. The less people families, but also staff that would be in and out of the homes, so less people had a chance of being exposed. But they were still on 24 hours 7. They did everything possible to make sure that the DSPs, those hands-on staff, had everything they could possibly need. We went out and purchased, little iPads for everybody so that people could still communicate with loved ones. We bought all kinds of supplies and games so people could do things and get distracted and try to enjoy themselves. Just getting supplies. If you remember, toilet paper was scarce, paper towel was scarce, basics were scarce. And so managers would go from store to store and store, allowed only to buy 2 rolls of this or that until they had enough to bring back to supply not just one home, but a whole bunch of homes. And they would communicate with you, the families, knowing how anxious you were, knowing how serious this was, to let you know what was going on, to let you know that we knew how you felt, to let you know everything that we could do was being done and the status of your loved ones. The executive team, people that I depend on the most, right from the very start in guiding my thinking, but then as we worked together as a team, really collaborating, there was no roadmap. This was the first time any of us had been in a pandemic, and there was no directions. So we had to build our own way and have it evolve. We agreed right away that every day we would meet at 10 o'clock on the phone, and we had a structure of, we're reviewing all the sites, we're reviewing all the health of the staff and of the individuals. We're reviewing, the latest protocols to say what it is we should be doing and how we should be doing it. We're reviewing the PPE, the protective equipment of masks that were 90 cents, and we had plenty before this hit because we barely had to use them. All of a sudden we're $6 and $7 and you couldn't get them. And it was like the black market. So it's reviewed the status and the burn through because now everybody needed them. What's more, we needed N95s that are exceptionally good at protecting people. And those were very expensive and very rare. So it was like the black market where staff full-time was looking to see where can I get 100 of these, 400 of those, gloves, gowns, caps, face shields. And we had to go out of the country. We were competing with states and institutions. And some of the deals we had to make were terrifying deals, that you send a check for $25,000 with no proof that you're going to get anything, not even a full confidence that who you made the deal with is a real deal and this isn't just going to be cashed and gone. But we had no choice. We had to do what we needed to do. But every day throughout the first several months, the leadership team met and we identified what we needed to do and what we needed to do more of, things that were missing. We had to reach out to the families where there was illness and death. HR had to reach out to all the families of our staff where their loved ones were in the hospital and on ventilators. And again, when mom or dad is in the hospital, when months ago it was just taking care of people and showing people how to get out in the community and do things for themselves. And all of a sudden they were helping people try to survive and live and putting themselves at risk and getting sick and being on the edge. Those families were terrified. And so everybody from the DSPs who were hands-on, very heroic, to the managers who were doing everything possible to make it keep running, to the executive team who was trying to think of everything possible that needed to be done so that we could continue to function. Everybody was on board, full speed. And the families. So we'll always have differences. And expectations sometimes we cannot meet because sometimes they're a little steep and a little unreal, but sometimes we fail. But we always have those discussions. But in this COVID crisis, the families were incredible. Again, knowing how anxious you were, you couldn't see your loved ones who were vulnerable on average, but in this environment, incredibly vulnerable. But for you guys who called and talked to the staff and supported the staff, so many things were dropped off at front doors. Food, supplies, notes, just incredible things were done. So we lost 7 residents. We lost 1 staff. And surprisingly, the staff person and one of the residents were younger men with no health issues, really. And that just reminded everybody just how dangerous this situation was. All that stress, all the ugly of that, all the pressure, it also gave us a lot of chance to see a lot of good and beautiful. Just some small stories of that, because those are the things you really hold on to when you're feeling a little bit heavy. So there was a staff person whose son plays violin, and he had a beautiful idea and he followed through. Not just a good thought, but he acted on it. He would show up at the group homes, call ahead, pull out a chair on the front lawn and play music. And for people who were feeling isolated in a home, all of a sudden to have live music, a violin, and someone special out there doing it, that became an event. Development and some other managers got together and said, you know, people are scared, people are worried, they're not seeing everything that's going on, and they're, you know what, we need to play a little, we need to celebrate, we need to let off steam. So they had a parade that went up and through by all the sites that they could possibly go by. And as they left one site, that site would call ahead, say they're on your way, and the windows rolled down and everyone's beeping, and people hung out windows and celebrated life and laughed a little bit and let some of the steam off. And again, the families who were in a unique kind of stress and a unique kind of anxiety, for them to do all those acts of kindness were beautiful and yet keep their spirits up. The one image I have that is kind of an icon of this crisis for me, moms have special relationships, especially with daughters. And this woman's daughter was in one of our group homes. And she's kind of challenged in her abilities. And she was missing mom. And mom was certainly missing her. And so when she visited, knowing that she couldn't go in the house, she stood outside of the house at the door. The daughter stood in. And they both leaned forward and kissed through the storm door. And someone took a picture of it. And it looked like a Christmas card. There was no sign of anxiety or stress or fear. Just a mother and a daughter sharing a beautiful moment of being connected, even through a storm door. I think what COVID did was give opportunities to all of us to be at our best when things are at their worst. None of us would wish for this to happen. But I think I can speak for all of the staff to say that if it was going to happen, I can't think of a place I would have rather been than at Clearbrook, having the ability to make a difference and an impact. And so many staff did, and so many leadership staff did. And with the support of the families, it was all possible. It was a challenge. So well more than 60 staff got sick. Many, again, hospitalized, ventilators, and when they get out, they're so weakened they would have to go to rehab. And many individuals sick at home and then sick enough to go to the hospital. And the sad part about that are many times people who don't understand or are sick and scared, they couldn't have us with them, and they couldn't have family with them. And sadly, when people died, there was no one holding a hand. Families felt that, and we feel for the families. Our staff get very close to the people that we provide services and supports to. And when they saw some of those people leave to the hospital not knowing if they'd see them again, and then hearing that we were not going to, tough moments, and then right back to work for the people that needed them. So where are we at today? It's been relatively quiet. As you know now, as we've improved our communications, you guys are hearing about what's going on when it goes on. If there's a new situation, you're hearing about it. You're getting the phone calls and follow-up emails. But we're planning. I pray, I hope, and I want to be optimistic that most of it's in the rearview mirror, and that ahead of us we have vaccines and better treatments. But I also worry that maybe with fall and winter and the flu season and kind of being stuck indoors, we're going to be back in a place of risk. And so we rode out our own storm along with everybody else. Didn't come through without bruises and hurt. But right now it's kind of calm. We've learned a lot. We're better prepared with supplies and with our protocols of what we do and how we do it. But looking forward, we are preparing for the worst because that's our job. That's our obligation. So if it does happen, we're not surprised. And so we're through it, but not done with it. And you have to understand, as you guys have felt the stress, so have we. And it's a lot of pain and a lot of pride. Another piece of this, not a priority, but real, is the financial cost of what COVID has done to Clearbrook. And so that PPE that I was talking about, the things that were 99 cents that are now $6.99, and when maybe we could get away with 1,000 for 3 months or longer, we needed thousands in a week everywhere and running through them. And we needed better than just surgical masks. We needed N95s and gloves in every household and gowns in the households that were sick and face guards that would cover the whole face to protect the people we take care of, but also to protect the staff. All of those things, none of it was budgeted for. And you've gotten the letters saying it's about $1.3 million. Some of that's supplies. Some of it is that double time. Again, to ask someone who's making $13 an hour to go into a home and put themselves at risk, and for them to do it cheerfully. Quick story. In order to look at myself in the mirror after this was over, I knew I would have to experience what my staff were experiencing. I asked Jessica if she could take me over to the Commons and get all the supplies I would need to be protected, because I didn't know anything about what I needed to do. And so she took care of me. We drove over there, and face masks, the guards, the gowns, the gloves. She made sure I was all tied on nice. And as we walked into that building, my heart was pounding like I was walking into a fire. Knowing that I was surrounded by this virus, knowing that there was people in this building who had left, gone to the hospital and died, knowing there was people in this building who were sick, but not sick enough to go to the hospital. And I was feeling very lightheaded and afraid, not real proud of that. Our staff came in, helping each other to get dressed like Jessica helped me. They were laughing and playing with each other and excited to see the people they're supposed to take care of and help to make their days better. After about an hour, I left, having visited, and I saw what I needed to see. I was exhausted, and I couldn't imagine what it would be like to work 8 hours or 16 hours and go to bed and get up and do it again. Walk into that environment, get all suited up to the point of just so uncomfortable, and then do it again the next day and do it for a month. When I got home, I did what's expected. I stripped in my garage, put the clothes into a garbage bag. That was going to be for a separate load of wash. And I went upstairs and I took a shower for a half an hour, 3 times, cleaned everything. My mother-in-law has moved in with us, and she's fragile. My wife has a situation with arthritis, so she's on immune suppressants. And I've got a son. And I was deathly afraid I was going to get them sick. In our world, we live in 14-day increments. Because after you're exposed, if you're going to get sick, it's going to be about 14 days. You'll know it or not. And when those 14 days were up, I remember waking up saying, dodge that bullet. And then kind of ashamed of myself, thinking, and that staff is going back in today for another 14 days, and then tomorrow for another 14 days. So that is what we're facing. That is what we've done. And that's what we're looking forward to. You should be very confident and very proud of the staff that are serving your sons and daughters and your brothers and sisters. You hear the term heroic, and I think it's overused. But these people did more than just show up. They placed themselves at risk and continue to do so, knowing it was the right thing, but knowing the cost. Going forward, they're willing to do it. We're prepared to do it. And quite honestly, tonight, I'm asking for your help. That 1.3 million continues to grow. That is money that we're not reimbursed for by the state. That is unbudgeted cost that we have an obligation to do to make sure that your loved ones are safe and that the staff are safe. And with that, I'd like to introduce Jessica Smart.
Thank you, Tony. And thank you all for joining us this evening. I can't tell you how proud I am of the staff in the 16-bed homes, in addition to the Commons, as well as all of the individuals that live in our ICF environment. I want to take the opportunity to thank my compassionate and dedicated team, the Wilkie and Fairfax team, Karen, Hadil, Onika, Camilla, Diane, and up in Gurney, Amanda, and Justin, who started a new job with us right in the middle of COVID, and he came right in and he's still there. Lindsay too, and Daryl. And, you know, before COVID, if you had asked me about my team, I would have used those same words: compassionate, dedicated, team players. And after our experience with COVID and our continued challenges with it, those words aren't enough. I can't even think of the right words. Tony said heroic, and that one too. And you know, for what they've been asked to do and what they've willingly done, I can't even put words to that. Just to kind of highlight for you some of the things that we did back in the spring and continue to do in the ICF environment. With my team, and we plan and we plan and we plan again. We created crisis staffing plans. We reached out to staff and asked people who would be willing to work if somebody were to get sick, so that we had you know, staff on hand that would come in and continue to provide care for the individuals we serve. We worked closely with our medical director in terms of what do we do if somebody becomes symptomatic? How would we even begin to get a test, looking back at March and April, and what would that process look like for us? We probably learned more than we want to know about cleaning and disinfecting things, and EPA registered disinfectants. We hired additional janitorial services, vital checks. That became critical. That's something that our staff do continuously throughout the day in the ICFs to monitor the health of everybody. The wellness screenings of staff, the tracking of positive COVID cases and symptoms, and working with not only the Illinois Department of Public Health, but the Cook County Department of Public Health, the Lake County Department of Public Health, working through policies and protocols. What do we do when one of our clients is hospitalized and the hospital is looking to send them back, and how do we safely bring people home after they've been hospitalized with COVID? And as you know from watching the news, these policies, these guidance, they change almost every day. So my team is monitoring all of these things daily, getting updates, doing research, revising policies. That's become an everyday task for us in the ICFs, to make sure that we're doing everything that we need to do, and we're well educated on how to safely maintain everybody at home. And kind of reflecting back on the crisis staffing plan, I want to share a story with you as it relates to staff and what they were asked to do in the early days. So as I mentioned, I went around and I asked staff if they would be interested in working, kind of how that would work, the schedule, where they may stay, you know, in a day program that was vacant, what we had to offer them at that time. And several staff within hours were texting me saying, count me in, whatever you need. And in the spring, we had, luckily now I can say it was a false alarm. We had a couple ladies at Wilkie who became symptomatic in close proximity to each other. We called the paramedics, and much to our surprise, they wouldn't enter the building. They were in the parking lot full PPE, and they were asking the staff at Wilkie to bring the clients to the front porch. I can't even imagine how frightened the staff were, but they did exactly what they were asked to make sure that the individuals got some medical attention. Back in the early days, and unless you were very, very, very ill, you weren't being taken to the hospital, were not offered testing. So we were advised to isolate the individuals, monitor them, and just continue routine care. So we needed somebody to work with these individuals. And this was the first time that we thought we might have actual COVID cases here. So a young woman who works at the Commons, actually, Tatiana, she was the first one to respond to say, absolutely, any way that I can help. And so I called her. I said, here's the situation, can you help us? And she said, absolutely. She was on shift at the Commons. She left the Commons and came right to Wilkie. She worked the next 16 hours. She didn't go home. She didn't have clothes. She didn't have toiletries. And she offered to live in the Riley building. We had a couple beds set up. And she did that for 2 weeks. And at the end of it, she was thanking me and thanking Clearbrook for the opportunity. And you know what, Tatiana did it again when we had COVID at the Commons. And I think, I hope we don't have to do it again, but I know that she would, and she's continued to put herself at risk to do her job and care for the clients because she loves them, and she wants Clearbrook to do well and everybody to get the care that they deserve. Very specific to Fairfax, Larry slept at Riley also when we had a positive case at Fairfax, so that he could continue to work and keep his family safe. Patrick at Fairfax and Kristen at Wilkie, both of them took individuals in the van to go get COVID testing. So I think if you could think about having yourself in that situation, being in a vehicle in a long line, and then having to swab the individual. These are things a year ago I would have never imagined asking a DSP to do, and here we are, and we're asking, and they're doing it, and they're happy to do it, and I just can't tell you how proud I am of them. We have a nurse, Katie. Katie works at the Commons. Katie has a 9-month-old baby that she left with her mom, so she could move into the hotel so that she could continue to provide nursing services to the clients at the Commons when we had several active cases there. And these are just a few examples of the extraordinary things that our staff have been doing every day since the end of March. And I don't know where we would be without them, and guided by, you know, Karen and Amanda and the things that we have in place. And our clients living in the 16-bed homes have been wonderful. They've been in there since the end of March. We go outside, and that's, you know, it's pretty limited under our public health guidelines, and they are such troopers. You know, the staff are doing everything they can to make it as normal an environment as they can for the individuals, so, and make sure that they're not missing out on things because of COVID and the restrictions. So when it was you know, time for when we would normally have Fun Fest, Karen and Amanda planned their own Fun Fest for Wilkie and Fairfax and the Bright Home, and they went outside and they had you know, they barbecued and they did games and had goodie bags, and they really thought of every aspect of what Fun Fest is for the clients and made sure that was covered. So again, that's just one example of what's happening on a daily basis in the ICFs. And I know for families, this has been very, very hard. I know that our rules from public health are so restrictive in terms of visiting, and even, you know, the delay in getting outdoor visits authorized, and not having anybody come into the building. And I appreciate you guys sticking with us through this. I know I can't imagine what you go through, not being able to see your child, and you know that we understand that, and we appreciate your flexibility with us, and we really just appreciate all the support, the emails, the supplies, everything that you have done for us along the way. It's just been phenomenal, and I appreciate all of you. And I want to thank you for letting my team and I take care of your child. Thank you for trusting us to do so, especially during this frightening time. You know, we take great pride in what we do, and the fact that you allow us to do that for your child and your family. So thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Karen Jones now, the director for Wilkie and Fairfax, so that she can share some more with you what's been happening there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica, so much. Hello, everybody, and good evening. I want to thank you for joining us. It's sort of a running joke that I'll often say things like, what's the silver lining, or what's the rainbow in this thunderstorm? Basically, you can always find the good in any bad situation. And Tony touched on some of those good things that have happened here at Clearbrook out of this bad situation of COVID. In my opinion, some of the good things that have come out of COVID, curbside pickup, telemedicine, and delivery services for just about everything that you can imagine have been some really great things to come out of COVID. But those are all things. The most important thing to come out of COVID for me aren't things at all, but the people. The people that were met socially distanced all over the northwest suburbs, who answered my social media pleas for homemade masks at the very beginning when we couldn't get some of that PPE that Tony was talking about. Family friends who work at grocery stores who pulled much needed items off delivery trucks before they were put on the shelves for the general public, and then meeting me in parking lots to hand off the items. I promise I did pay for those things, but I did get some weird looks because it looked a little shady, meeting somebody in a parking lot and transferring boxes from one car to another, but I promise I paid for all of them. You know, family and friend discount, but I paid for them. For me, the most important people, though, have been our clients. As Jessica and Tony have mentioned, they've adapted so well to having their routines flipped upside down, better than any of us could ever have imagined. Some have gone from seeing their family members every weekend to seeing their loved ones through a window, on a device, or connecting through a phone call. Our families, you've trusted us with the care of your loved ones. It's not something that any of us take very lightly. I empathize and sympathize with how difficult it is not being able to give your loved one a hug. And every conversation I've had with a family member who desperately wants visiting restrictions lifted, every one of you has said that you understand why we're doing what we're doing and want safety above all else, not only for your loved one, but for all of our clients and all of our staff members. As families, you've brought cleaning supplies and food to the homes. You've sent encouraging words and toilet paper. Both have been meaningful and needed, but in very different ways. You've had our backs in very different ways, but all very appreciated. As we're still navigating this world of COVID, we will continue to need your support and partnership with us. And our staff, we've had staff members who, despite being scared of the unknowns about COVID, showed up and continue to show up because they love our clients. Our staff have worn many hats to cover the gaps created by limiting the number of people in and out of the buildings. They have set up computers, TVs, Zooms, Skypes, FaceTimes, and all sorts of other gadgets and gizmos so our clients can stay connected and engaged. Some staff members have even broken out their toolkits to fix items around the house because we've been limiting maintenance to just those emergency situations. In a few weeks, I'll be celebrating my 19th year here at Clearbrook. And it's amazing, I'm only 21. I don't know how that's happened. But in my 19 years here, I've laughed every single day. I've had countless moments of joy working with our clients and staff, moments of sadness when we've lost people, moments of accomplishment, and if I'm being honest, just a few moments of frustration. In my 19 years here, I've only been scared once. I've been hit, kicked, bit, grabbed, and furniture thrown at me, but those weren't any of the moments where I was scared. Jessica mentioned earlier that at Wilkie we had several ladies very early on who were showing symptoms of COVID and their vital signs were out of the normal range. Our doctor directed us to call 911, and when the paramedics and fire department arrived, they would not come into the home. Now, I grew up on the northwest side of Chicago, and all of my neighbors were police officers and firemen. So I have this view that police officers, firefighters, and paramedics are big, strong, brave heroes who help us. And they absolutely are. But in that moment, when they wouldn't come into the home, I was scared. I was scared for our clients, and I was scared for our staff, because those that we call when we need help couldn't help us. In that moment, two things were so very clear to me. The first was that we were on our own. The paramedics basically told us the emergency medical system is so overwhelmed and so under-resourced right now that unless the person can't breathe, don't call us. The second was that our Clearbrook team really are amazing heroes. When the paramedics and firefighters wouldn't come into the home, our Clearbrook team didn't hesitate to walk into the homes month after month, week after week, day after day, shift after shift. In my 19 years, I've never been so proud to be part of the Clearbrook team and to work with this unbelievable team of people. So that being said, I'll pass it on to one of those team members I've been proud to work with, Amanda Underwood.
Hi guys. I'm just going to piggyback off of some things that Tony and Jessica and Karen has said. I think we've talked a lot about our team, but we've really only highlighted half of it. The parents really truly have helped us through this, especially in the beginning when we were limiting visits to the 16 beds, the commons, the Zilla homes. As Tony mentioned, there was frustration, and understandably so, there was frustration in the beginning with not being able to see your loved ones, but the very next thing that you all said is, what do you need from me? How can I help? What do you need most? Do you need sanitizer, toilet paper, especially, as we all know? And we wouldn't have been able to, DSPs and management alike, wouldn't have been able to get through those first couple months, especially if you didn't help us not have to worry about some of those things that we tend to not think about from day to day. Like, who thinks about needing toilet paper until you're out of it? So I just really want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart, and I know Jessica and Karen and Tony feel the same about everything that you've done for all of the homes in Clearbrook. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sharon Wine. You're muted.
First of all, I want to say how impressed I am with all the panelists tonight and how amazing I think you all are, and how incredibly lucky Clearbrook is to have you all, listening to all of you tonight. I'm just so impressed. I just want to say how honored I am to speak with you tonight. My husband Phil and I have 3 boys, and our oldest son Daniel is autistic. He's 38 and he's been with Clearbrook since he was 20 years old. And he lives at the Kennecott Scylla in Arlington Heights with now 6 other guys. I'm a parent. I'd like to tell you about my Clearbrook COVID experience coming from the Kennecott house. I remember it well, as Tony said, how it started before St. Patrick's Day. This happened on March 13th. I got a phone call from our fantastic Q, Ashley Barnes, and she told us that Clearbrook was going into isolation and I would not be able to see Danny or take him home. Danny's birthday was 3 days later, and we always had a wonderful celebration for his birthday with another client, and it was heartbreaking not to be able to have that party. But Phil and I decided, let's see how it goes and hope Danny does well. Everything was going smoothly until the end of May, when we received an email from Ashley saying that one of our clients was in the hospital with COVID. This was like the first COVID person I knew that was tested positive, and somebody especially who was in our house. I remember I was so worried, and the staff was concerned, of course, but they all monitored our guys, and they took their temperatures and told us they would watch them very carefully. The client that was in the hospital tragically passed away, as well as subsequently one of our staff members. We were heartbroken and absolutely terrified at the same time, and felt guilty that maybe we should have taken our son home. Clearbrook calculated the time that the client that had passed away until the 14th day, and everything was going smoothly until one of the clients just coughed a few times on the 14th day. And Claire Brooke said, we're going to immediately take him to the hospital and have him tested. And he was tested, and because he showed no symptoms, they sent him back to the house. Claire Brooke was being very careful and decided to quarantine all the guys as if they did have COVID. They ate in their rooms. They were constantly watched by the staff and monitored. Dave even had a partition built with a door so this client that had possibly COVID would be isolated from the rest of the guys. The staff all wore PPE equipment, and they came back that this client had asymptomatic COVID. Everyone was extremely careful, and everybody was watched very well. In addition, we feel that the staff are like guardian angels to our son Danny and the other clients. I really, truly can't think of anything Claire could have done more, like all the women and Tony talked about tonight, about all the incredible things they do to keep our kids safe. But I'm happy to tell you that we are now 2 months COVID-free. I want to thank Tony and Dave, who's not here right now, for doing a wonderful job communicating, as you all know, with all of us through emails and phone calls, calming our fears and being very transparent. And I have to tell you, I don't believe it's by luck that Claire Brooke, this huge organization, is COVID-free. From administration down to all the staff, they've worked so hard to keep all of our clients safe as possible. I remember recently talking to a board member who was on the finance committee for Claire Brooke and telling him that I was truly so glad that my son Danny could be with Claire Brooke for the rest of his life. And he said to me, Sharon, do you know that that costs money? And I said, but Danny is funded by Claire Brooke, funded by the state, and the money goes to Claire Brooke. And he says, do you have any idea that the state does not cover all of Claire Brooke's expenses? I truly had no idea and was totally surprised. That is why it is so important and beneficial to Claire Brooke to donate and support this wonderful organization as we have and will continue to do. Any gift truly will help. Phil and I have participated and supported some of the wonderful fundraisers they have all the time, like the Friends Wine Tasting, Jelly Belly Days, the Shining Star Balls, Walk and Run, the golf outing, just to mention a few. But they all had to be canceled due to COVID. But once they come back on, they are such a wonderful events to go to and to enjoy. I just want to conclude by telling a story when we finally were able to see Danny with social distancing. The staff thought it would be difficult for Danny because he's used to coming home every weekend for an overnight and thought it would be just too difficult and hard for him. But one of our staff members, Moose Lou, said, you know, come on over, we'll give it a try and see how he does. My son Daniel is obsessed with jigsaw puzzles and is phenomenal at doing them and looks so forward to them. So Phil and I said, we are going to bring some jigsaw puzzles for him and make him really happy. So we raced over to the back of the house. We hadn't seen Danny in 4 months. So excited to see him with such anticipation. He walks out of the sill and he looks beautiful. And I tell him how much I love him. I miss him. I'm tears in my eyes. I'm so happy to see him. And he looks at us, he picks up the puzzles, and he says, bye. And we go, bye? We were like so flabbergasted. And we said, Danny, we're going to stay. You can do your puzzle. And truly, we had such a wonderful visit. And he was so happy, and we were so happy. And we felt so comforted to know that he felt so comfortable living where he does. And truly, when I got in the car, I looked at my husband, and I said to him, you know, honey, when we're not here anymore, our Danny will be just fine. And I have to tell you, what an incredible gift we're given to know that our children are safe and cared for. And look at the people here tonight, the love they have for your children or your brother or sister or sibling or friend. And I just have to say, I feel so grateful and lucky that our son Daniel is with Claire Brooke. And I'm sure I'm speaking for a lot of you tonight when I say thank you to Claire Brooke for keeping our family members safe, cared for, and happy under your continued care. And I just want to say how blessed I feel and how lucky we are to be with this wonderful organization. And thank you, everybody, tonight. And I know that Tony has just a few more words for us.
Thanks, Sharon. So to be on a screen with such beautiful souls, I'm proud of being at Clarebrook, but I'm constantly humbled. The ICF's, for all the restrictions public health puts on it, and for all the challenges that the people experience living there with their health and other issues, to have a team like Amanda and Karen and Jessica, to hear how much they care for the people that they're caring for, to hear how much they appreciate the staff that's their team. Of course, I'm proud, but truly just humbled. And I know the families that are on tonight appreciate it, and all the families that couldn't be with us, I know they appreciate it. In order to help these people continue to do what we do, especially in light of COVID, we don't want to take any shortcuts. We don't want to do less than what we're capable of doing. And in all honesty, that's why we need your help. And so tonight, so that we have the tools that we need, whether things get tough or not, that we're prepared, we really need to ask you for your help. There's plenty of ways, plenty of opportunities, and I believe Andy will share a little bit of that with you now. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your story, and thank you for the families for tuning in tonight. There are many ways that you can support Clarebrook. I know you've received a lot of reminder emails from me. If you have any questions about making a gift to Clarebrook, you can reach out there. You could name us in your estate plan. You can make a pledge. You can also sign up to be monthly donors. That's kind of a new initiative that we have, and it's kind of a way of subscription gifts for us. So that way you could just use your credit card. You could make a gift, $10 a month. Anything, any amount will help us with this unbudgeted expense that COVID has brought to us. So like I said, any questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can email me if you have specific questions about your loved one's care. You know who to reach out to at the home. And again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And we hope you have a great night. Thank you.